Hi, I'm Dom and welcome to the latest episode of the New Homes podcast. For those who are listening and not watching, I'm just going to describe where we are. So we're sat in the amazing kitchen dining space of our Harrogate show home in Lucas Gardens in Bedfordshire, and we're going to be talking all about interior design, styling and products with two bona fide experts. We've got Alysha Ali, who is Group Interior Designer at Redrow.
Hi.
And Ruth Wasserman, award-winning product designer.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Alysha, do you want to start with you and tell me a little bit about yourself?
I've been with Redrow for about 5 years now, just over. My background is quite mixed, which is, I think, great for design and show. So started off a little bit of high-end residential experience, very exclusive, really exciting clients, and then we moved on to more kind of commercial. I worked for big brands like the Hook Group, did all their warehouses, receptions, boardrooms, so a mixed bag. And then now I'm at Redrow, doing all the show homes.
So, for example, like the show home we're in now, it'd be your responsibility to make it look like it looks.
Yeah, every single aspect of this is pretty much down to my team and then the region. I'm working hand in hand.
Awesome. And Ruth, what about yourself? Do you want to give us a bit of background about you?
Yeah, so I'm a design director. I've been working for 20 years in the design industry in various different ways. So I started off as a furniture designer by trade. And I was working at a business that was designing furniture that was sold in independent stores, but also into some of the UK's biggest high street stores. So things like John Lewis, Marks and Spencer. I then moved on to be design director at British heritage brand Urkel, which was an amazing experience. And I think I was really fortunate to join them at a time when the mid-century furniture look was just starting to become really, really popular. I worked there for a number of years, leading the design team, working with the amazing in-house factory there. And then I moved on to Made.com, which was just like chalk and cheese. It was a 3-year-old business when I joined Made. I joined as design director, and from 2013, I led the creative vision for all of the product that we did there. Very recently, I've left Made after an amazing almost 8 years there to become a freelance consultant, and now I'm working with a few different larger and smaller businesses, helping them to create really solid product strategies and then translating that into creative direction for products.
Sounds like your time at Made was really exciting, and as you say, it went from a small business to a much bigger one. Do you think that reflected their rise, reflected a general interest in the public in becoming more involved in wanting to learn a bit more about product and interior design generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like one of these things that was this amazing confluence of a few different things. So it was built as a digital-first brand, and it was really the first homewares brand that was e-com first, or a pure play, as you might call it. So that was really fundamental because it hit right at the right time. And people did say at the time, there's no way you'll be able to sell a sofa online. But they did manage it, and that was through a combination of like really clever ways of presenting the furniture, getting a feel for, using video a lot so that people could kind of virtually see and feel when they couldn't do it. They had things like outlines of bodies to get scale. So they did that very well. But I think at the same time, it was as the internet and the rise of things like Instagram. So I think that the popularity of those visual platforms that everybody uses now has meant that roll back 10 years, and I think people were really using what they wore as a personal expression of themselves. And that was, what people saw out of the house was what you got dressed in the morning. And I think that Instagram has completely changed that, and it's meant that people are able to show anyone the inside of their homes, and they're able to use their homes as that way of self-expression in a way that they only really could with what they put on their body previously.
And do you find that as well, Alysha? I know, like, when I would look at, say, you put a show home shot on Redrow's Instagram, immediately people are asking, where's the sofa from? Where's the wallpaper from?
Yeah. Most of the social comments from customers and potential customers are about where it's all from, where do we source things from, where's the inspiration, how does it go from A to B to Z. So it's a very thorough process. Everything is thought about from our side, which obviously inspires the customer at the end.
It's interesting what you're saying, Ruth, about people saying you'd never be able to sell a sofa online, and suddenly the world's turned to e-commerce. And even during the pandemic, we found in Alysha at Redrow that people were buying homes based off virtual tours, off video calls with sales consultants. So it just shows, doesn't it, that people's appetite to buy things is fully moved online, isn't it?
And I also think another thing that we experienced before I left Made, the pandemic has had a particular impact on online sales. But there's a lot of people who have still been very reticent even now to spend a lot of money online, so on furniture or things like that. And because the pandemic has actually forced people into it, there are people who wouldn't necessarily have taken that leap right now, but it's like a floodgate, because once you've crossed the line, you don't go back. And so for any online or pure play business, it's actually accelerated a movement that was already going on. And there was actually, in the data, in the graphs, you could see a step change in how that was working.
Have you noticed an impact in terms of brands trying to get products to market with the issues people are experiencing because of COVID-19 and just generally, logistics and getting stuff out there?
Wow, logistics, that's a whole nother conversation to do with the pandemic, because it's been an absolute nightmare. But in terms of consumer demand, I think it's, again, it's accelerated some things that were going on. So the anxiety and fear associated with the unknown of the pandemic has really forced people to seek a sense of sanctuary in their homes. And I think those people had extra income and they were looking around their homes thinking, well, I'll spend it here and upgrade. So I think there was an awful lot in the way of people suddenly taking a look at things that they hadn't before and wanting to update and change.
I know we've got a few examples on the site we're in today where we've got a home office and a mixed-use space. Yeah. I'm assuming that's something that's changed quite a lot since pre-pandemic for Redrow.
We've integrated mixed-use and purely office spaces into beds, mainly fours, some downstairs show house types have studies, but bed fours and fives really. It's not just a one-shop look for a study or a mixed-use space. That's what I'm always pushing to find the next look, the next colours we can use, the next type of headboard, whether it's a sofa bed or whether it's a proper bed. And then we have garden pods as well, which are a new addition to Redrow. So we can take that space outside. We can have, a peloton in there. You can have it as a home office if you want, but we'll show it as a sort of gym space. So you've got both spaces, so it's not just the home, it's the outside space, it's how you interchange bedrooms.
And how do you find the challenge of, obviously, whether it's me or someone twice my age coming in and seeing this show home, you obviously want everyone to find it attractive and to want to buy it. So how do you balance all those different types of buyers in designing the show homes? Because
we have so many different house types and we want to maintain a consistent look and feel for our brand, and the quality as well for me is that's what's key. So we have personas which range from very small family couple, divorcee, right up into aspirational up buyers, downsizers. So each one of those has a look that I guide and we shape and we change, but it's not restricted. It's not a thing that we have to stick with. We can go off piece, we can bring in the trends, but the key is understanding who lives there. There is some crossover when you look at data, but that informs the design, and then we layer it for each house type.
And we've touched on a little bit about some of those consumer trends off the back of COVID-19. Now, as a bit of a novice in this area, what are trends like generally with product and interior design? Is it like fashion where you see a celebrity wear a dress on a Saturday night and it's online on the Monday, or does it work slightly differently?
I think from my perspective, as a general one-line answer to that, it's much slower than fashion. For various reasons, because it costs more, because it's more difficult to change, because it's actually bigger and you wouldn't want to, the products are more durable, they last longer. So I think generally people buy less out there things. They kind of temper their taste when they're buying homewares, and it lasts longer, so therefore the trends last longer. And
do you find the same, Alysha? And I guess you've got the additional challenge of the physical build programme of show homes as well, and fitting in around that.
The launch date is key for us, so 16 weeks is where we need to get this show home finished with site, with region, and get it absolutely perfect. So we'll drive that from our team, And then, yeah, it's just a whole process. So from brief right through to spec. So as you can see, everything that we have here is designed by us guys, looking at trends, looking at what our brand would want to be like, and then what we need to aspire to be like. And then equally, then it moves on to the design itself, auditing, snagging, working with site team, making sure the roof's on, or the windows in when we arrive with furniture, is the carpet laid, is everything absolutely perfect? And we're like the keeper of that key, I'd say, making sure it's perfect, ready for launch.
What I'm quite interested in understanding is the difference between interior and product design, Ruth. So when you've got a team of designers working with you and you're looking at a sofa, a table, how much consideration are you giving to the space that's ultimately gonna live in?
Well, I mean, it's part of the storytelling, I'd say. So if I think about the way that we develop products, not on an individual level, but start the kind of process of creating a seasonal launch, let's say, because whether you're working to like seasonal trends or not, your products have to have a kind of relationship to one another. So, you know, we start on a very macro sense and see what's going on around the world, and then start pulling out the specific interiors trends, a bit of the fashion trends. And it's a little bit like, you know, I've heard it said that creativity is about creating connections. So we would do something like get loads of pictures and put them on the wall, and it might be furniture, it might be interiors, it might be outfits or holiday destinations, and you start creating the connection and storytelling. So actually for me, the kind of the starting point is about storytelling. So it might be a little bit about the interior, and it's also a little bit about making up the story of the people who live there, and I guess that's where your personas come in.
Yeah, it's exactly. I was about the same as ours is the story itself, how it begins, who is there, who is using this space, and that's the key to interior design, isn't it? Understanding who is, and it affects the layout. Like in here, obviously, in the Harrogate, it's an open plan family kitchen dining space, but equally it would cross over and suit a sociable couple, a sociable divorcee that has a lot of people round, that, you know, wants to have an open plan living space. So yeah, it crosses over. It's understanding the story, and it affects style, and it affects the furniture we buy. Is that relevant to the person that lives here? A bench seat or a chair, which obviously links to trends as well. So it's like a whole accumulation of many things, but the key thing is the storytelling and the brief and getting the persona right.
And how do you find the process of, you've probably got your own preferences, and like I'm sure, Alysha, your home is equally as lovely as this show home, but the styling might be somewhat different. As creatives with strong sense of our own tastes, how do you guys go about making sure you keep that out when you've got a brief to meet for a specific client or group of people?
Again, you have to you have your own style, which will obviously influence how you design. You can't help that; it's natural. But you need to. For me, it's understanding my client is Redrow, so we have to understand our brand, and then if our brand is basically quality, everybody knows Redrow, so we need to make sure the persona is linked with that, which then affects the design and how we fit out. So when I'm in a Stratford, I'm the Stratford buyer. So when I'm designing that, it's who what would they want, and they're my age. And then when I'm in a Harrogate, they're slightly older, so I put that hat on. What would they buy? What artwork would they want? Is it relatable? Is it actually true to that person? And you have to be very methodical, and it's again the process, because you could have all the time in the world to do these, but we've got 16 weeks usually to get them over the line, so it's incredibly fast-paced.
And we've talked a lot about style and creativity. I guess more from a product point of view, Ruth, how much of, you know, I've seen some weird and wonderful sofas and chairs and tables online. How much of the practical implications would you look at in design? Is that the first thing you think about in product design, is how practically that product's going to work, or does design come first and the look of it?
It very much depends, but I think that both things are part of the brief. So if you go back to this storytelling, so we're saying, okay, let's say we're like, oh yeah, we're designing this, we've got a collection that's all about natural materials, and we've got a palette based on natural colours, and we're inspired by kind of Spanish coastal areas. This is the style inspiration, but at the same time, any given season, we probably want to develop about 20 different sofas. So you've got one which is a sofa bed that has got a specific mechanism it has to fit in. You've got another which is like, we want something which is basically a really big corner sofa unit. Brief is open, but the cost has to come in at this. So there's a lot of kind of practical implications, and they all have to work together within part of the brief. But the functionality is kind of hand in hand, essentially. And then as you go through it, you know that it's the execution and the reviewing of the product that becomes that as well. So it's going into the factory and sitting on it and being like, oh my God, or oh my God, you know, it's this, and the technical details, obviously. So it's this kind of blend of like the kind of macro inspiration through to the micro size of your stitches or quantity of feathers on top of a cushion kind of thing.
And you used the word there, inspiration. I think as someone who just painted his whole house white and got a couple of colourful cushions and a grey sofa, I've got very little. As two design experts, where do you go to get inspired for your next Start With You leash-like show home?
Wow, as I always say, inspiration is literally everywhere, and it is. You have shows, you can travel all over, you can go to Paris, you can go everywhere, and you get that inspiration from the market leaders and the people who are driving that, who we buy from, which goes for everything. But I think it's lifestyle, it's culture, it's art, it's travel, it's how people live, it's wellness, which links to COVID and the pandemic. So there's been a huge movement on what is in your four walls and how do you lay that space out, and then reviewing that, and then obviously redoing and spending some money on it. So yeah, it's everywhere. I don't find inspiration from one source. I think it's like scattered, and it's understanding and then pairing it together and knitting it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
Is that the same for you, Ruth?
Yeah, I think that's right. And what I would say about creativity and inspiration is during the pandemic, when I've been up in my loft come office, I've realised actually how hard I find it to do certain types of work up there, because it's actually, you know, as these standard, it's a converted loft with just one Velux. I can't look out the window. I can't get that kind of long eye gaze. And so I find myself coming downstairs or going for walks, and it's really true what they say about creativity, that actually the way that your brain works, you can't sit in a white box and make those things happen. So whether you're inspired by a piece of metal on the pavement or whether it's because you've seen something online, it needs to have the element of variation.
You need to live, and it's very difficult being a designer. I think being, obviously, like you're saying, inside in four white walls, it's pretty much, it's not impossible, but it makes your job very difficult.
And with the brands you work with, Ruth, are you noticing that home buyers and consumers are becoming more sustainably focused when it comes to buying stuff and almost demanding that from brands?
Absolutely, and I think, you know, it is a consumer demand, but it's very, very quickly, I believe, going to become not even just a consumer expectation, but it's almost like something which will be called out if you don't have it, rather than being a positive if you do. I don't think it's a selling point. As somebody put it to me, it's a matter of hygiene. I think that it's very difficult for people to adjust their own lives on a personal basis to make an impact. And so they're hoping that by the way that they consume and the choices that they make, they can have an impact in that way, and that the hard work, if you like, is done by the brands that they buy into. You know, you hear it in the news, so I don't need to say it, but we're in a climate emergency, and it's the responsibility of everybody, and that's brands included, to make sure that we're being as responsible and sustainable as possible, as quickly as possible. And it's, you know, people I work with who are very small brands at the moment, maybe like just 2 years in, it's their top priority. And I think in some ways they're in a more fortunate position than the kind of behemoths who are quite old, because it's pretty hard to change the direction of a massive ship, but it's necessary, and they have the resources to do it. So I guess, like, I assume that you guys consider it a lot within, I guess, the build and the energy as well as the interiors.
Yeah, it all links. And when we finish a show home, you know, that's us. This doesn't go in the bin. We sell it off for charity. We'll sell it to the team here, or it can go to the customer who's going to buy this plot. Like, we will always be thinking ahead of how we get rid of all these items that we've obviously spent a lot of money getting in, and creating a look and creating a vibe and an atmosphere for many people to buy into. So yeah.
Do you think, I guess, Ruth, that people are getting a bit braver. So, you know, gone are the days where people would walk into IKEA, they'd see a front room display and they'd buy it all, that people are trusting themselves to style their homes in their own essence.
Yeah, certainly. And I think coming back to that conversation about Instagram, you know, because there's so much more inspiration around, you see it everywhere. So previously, I think you had to be a very design-interested consumer and buying the kind of design press like the Elle Decos, the Living, etc., the Good Homes magazines, and not everybody was doing that, but I think many, many more people are seeing interiors, and even incidentally, because if it's like, you know, it might be a fashion influencer in the mirror, but you still see their home. So there's this kind of element of everything being mixed. So the inspiration for people is there, and the result of that is that it gives people confidence. They're seeing other people's homes and they get ideas of what to do more. But I think as well, because coming back to the conversation about, you know, people being able to create the show home look, one thing is, very rarely are people able to. I mean, so lucky for the people that would buy this show home and are able to buy the whole thing, because it's just absolutely perfect. But very rarely do people come to a situation in life where they have nothing of their own that they want in there. So it's about maybe taking the approach that us as designers take, thinking about what is brand you. Creating those focal items that are like, these are the 5 items that I own that I love. They define me. And
they epitomise you as a person, and then integrating them into what space you have. Yeah, it's very true.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, Alysha. I really appreciate your time today.
No problem.
So that's everything for today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed listening or watching. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you on the next one.